But folks, before we get over to the post game, there's one more segment that I want to do, and that's on water. And if people have been watching me from all the way back during the Michael Brooks show days, you know that I've been very worried about what's been happening with water privatization, not just in the United States, but across the globe. It's clear that the ownership class, that the capitalist class, understands that water is a commodity that is going to be more and more scarce in the future. And, I don't even like using that kind of language. I mean, it's disgusting to talk about something that's so fundamental to human life as a commodity, and they reduce something that is a basic building block of human life and natural life into something that should be bought and sold, speculated on, and basically converted into capital. And that has very, very dangerous consequences. As climate change worsens, the question of where we get our water becomes a question not of personal preference, but one of just very general survival. And if this is something that you've been thinking about, you're not alone. Capitalists have been trying to gain more and more control over this critical resource. And, we're going to talk about a very specific example out west. But from everything from just like controlling actual sources of water to getting their hands on municipal and public water supplies, the privatization of water has had devastating consequences for people. Look no further than what happened in Jackson, Mississippi, when it was years and years and years of deregulation, austerity, and opportunities for capitalists to try to make a buck off of public water systems. That created a fundamental crisis where people didn't have clean drinking water. The Colorado River is what we're going to be talking about right now, though. And if you're out west, you know about it. In recent years, has become drier and drier and has been the site of a contested struggle between states who are all laying claim to water usage for this critical river that provides, tremendous amounts of fresh, clean drinking water for people. Here's a Reuters clip to sort of set up that state struggle right fast for y'all.
This is what remains of the Colorado River. The vital body of water provides drinking water to 40 million people in 7 US states as part of a water distribution pact. But in the face of the worst drought in 12 centuries, made worse by climate change, the states had a January the 31st deadline to negotiate their own supply cuts or face possible mandatory cutbacks from the US government. As time was running out, Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, Utah, and Wyoming this week submitted a framework to cut water usage. But California wasn't part of it, having broken from the rest of the states to go it alone. Then California answered with its own counter-proposal, saying in a letter to federal officials that the plan from the other states directly and disproportionately impacts California. Some see California's decision to go it alone as increasing the odds the water fight will end up before the courts. David Hayes, a lecturer at Stanford University Law School, is a former top climate aide to President Joe Biden.
We have a situation where some of the water rights holders in California are saying we're not willing to give up more water, and we think we have legal rights, and we're willing to go to court if we have to. And that's not a solution here. And there's not enough time to litigate these issues. So much is at stake.
When the states struck their agreement 100 years ago, it presumed the river could provide much more water every year than it does now. That shortfall has left state water managers with more rights on paper than existing supply. California receives the largest allotment, most of it for Southern California. Statewide, 80%.
So this is an interstate conflict, and it looks like one that is going to be unresolved, which will have magnificent consequences for all the people in the region. And it's a real moment where you can see the desires of private industry, the desires of private landowners coming up against the reality of climate change. And we need a tremendous amount more of coordination and planning to be able to deal with these crises that we're facing that we just simply do not have. But if it was just like states negotiating and fighting over this kind of thing, that'd be one thing and it'd be bad. But what's really worrying is where you see a crisis, capitalists see opportunity. Over the past few decades, we've seen tremendous amounts of interest in farmland and water rights coming out of Wall Street. And just want to do a quick shout out to Bacon Cat from the Discord for highlighting this story for me. I want to talk a little bit about this company, Water Asset Management. Is one of these companies that has taken a keen interest in your water. And in Western Colorado alone, they've purchased over $20 million in land. You know, y'all think they're interested in the views and some green chili smothered enchiladas or Colorado mountain pie? You'd be wrong. They're in it to control the price of water. And don't just take my word for it. I mean, here is the CEO, president of Water Asset Management, talking about this 3 years ago on the impact. And I'm going to play a little bit of this and sort of pause it and sort of put this into layman's term for y'all, because it's a very, very clear example of what these people want to do with a precious resource like water.
We have a private equity team as well that does investing and fund management in the U.S., specifically focused on water rights. So we basically acquire very specific water rights that are used in irrigating what we refer to as low-value crops, and we bring efficiency and transparency to those very high-security water rights, and then we're able to essentially change the permit associated with them, which enables some of that water to go to what we refer to as higher beneficial consumptive users, and that means cities.
So just doing a little translation right there, when he's talking about higher value, it means people will pay more. Right. I mean, let's just be very clear about this. They use, he's utilizing certain kind of language, to make it seem like they're just in the pursuit of efficiency and ecology and all these things. It's like, no, who's going to pay the most for this resource that I'm getting access to because we live in a hellscape where a Wall Street company is able to come into Western Colorado and dictate water usage in the state, right? Not rational system, not a system of conservation. Who's going to pay me the most for the shit that I bought? And how can I get as much money as fucking possible from this? That's what is happening now. And you don't think it's going to get worse in the next few years? I mean, like, hell, if it was just the Colorado River, right, it'd be scary, but it's all over the damn country. I mean, the Rio Grande, you don't have to speak Spanish to understand what that river names implies. We've seen it go dry across miles across Texas and New Mexico in the past few years, right? Every once in a while there'll be a drought, but it is regular, it is sustained, and it means entire communities that relied on this resource in Texas and New Mexico don't have it anymore. Who's coming in is private corporations who are dictating who gets access to it, right? Not out of need, not out of any kind of social planning. Who's going to pay me the most for the thing that I was able to buy? Because again, we live in an unequal system in this country. And, we talk about the inequality in real estate in the United States. We talk about the fact that the vast majority of us are sort of condemned to be renters for the entirety of our life. When we're talking about water, we're not just talking about comfort. We're talking about life and death. And these organizations saying what also when they're talking about high value crops versus low value crops, I mean, what are they talking about? Are they talking about in terms of environmental impact? Or are they talking about in terms of how many calories you can provide for people? No, they're talking about what products, what commodities are being produced by these farms and ranches that are going to get us the highest return on our investment. Right? This isn't rational planning. This is pushing us over a cliff that we've been standing on for way too long. We got some more here. We can keep playing.
Other farmers that might be growing high value crops, industry, energy producers, as well as the environment, which is obviously a key component of the ultimate, beneficial use associated with water. When we started on our journey, the thing that was really obvious to us and becomes more obvious to everybody, essentially what we do is connect dots that already exist in people's minds. I mean,
he's going to connect some dots for you. I think you're already thinking what he's about to say next.
Knows water is essential. But not everybody's always thinking about it these days. And the dots that connected with us were, when we looked at the industry very closely in 2005, was that it's an industry, obviously, that delivers an essential resource that is non-fungible. In other words, it can't be replaced by anything else. When you need water, water is the only thing that will do, which is very unique. The companies in the industry are made up of primarily monopolies that are regulated, and generally allowed to earn about a 10% return on equity indexed to inflation. That will never really, we don't anticipate ever being deregulated, because there's nothing that can replace a water utility in a particular service territory. If you think about all the disruption.
There you go. We want to be able to sit here and weasel our way into a necessary monopoly-like position so that we can price gouge and do whatever we want. You talk about inflation in this country. You talk about what's happening with all sorts of necessary, commodities when it comes to food. These people want to do it with water. They're already able to do it. And, I know people know about Nestle and all these other corporations. This is not a one-off. I mean, there is a bonanza going on right now to acquire and control the resource of water, to acquire and control the resource of land in this country, so that people can dictate to us, the millions of people who live here, their terms and conditions. It's not a democracy. This is just one of those moments where the incompatibility of a democratic system and private property, just they run right into each other. Do you want to live in a world where Matt DeSario is able to dictate to you how much water you're able to use, what the price of water is, what organizations, what activities are going to be getting water? Do you want to live in that world? Or would you rather live in a world that we have a rationally planned economy that is able to provide water to the communities that need it at a price that is affordable and is reasonable? Right? This is something that it's slow rolling. Sometimes it's not the sexiest story, but boy, this is the kind of life or death thing that you really should be paying attention to.
That technology and innovation is causing in almost every industry. Water is one of the very few industries that's actually benefiting from technology and innovation, but not facing any of the disruptive threats that are facing transportation, retail, all different kinds of financial industry, all different kinds of industries. And when we looked at that, we kind of put all that together and then realized not only is it one of the most capital-intensive industries in the world, but it's one of the least understood industries by everybody here on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and everywhere else
hence
around the world.
For you as an asset manager.
And then that's when we literally dropped everything and decided, by focusing and creating a deep domain.
Just sorry, it's almost over. Just listen to this last bit, because I know he mumbles and talks about a lot of nonsense in between, but this last bit, should be harrowing.
Have now done, it would give us an information advantage in terms of the way we allocate capital. And that's proven to be the case. For 14 years, we've been doing this, and we've beaten the markets for 14 years. We've generated great returns for our investors.
So the translation there is, give us more money so that we can buy more farmland and land adjacent to water so that we can control more of it. We beat in the market every year. We understand that this is a choke point. This is something that people can't go without. If you watch the show all the way through, at the beginning we played the clip of him saying water is a non-fungible commodity, meaning that you can't replace water with anything else. Again, like a really unnatural way to talk about something as natural as water. And these are the kind of fights that are in front of us, right? If we're talking about climate change, we know that there is going to be a very, very different experience for working people than there is going to be for wealthy folks. Just here, over this past week, you saw kind of preview. It was random what communities, for the most part, lost electricity here in Austin when the trees fell and knocked over branches. But what communities got the lights on quicker? There's some discrepancies there, and even more largely in a kind of prolonged experience of unequal resource distribution under capitalism. That there are certain communities that are going to be taken care of when we continue to see more and more droughts, when we continue to see more and more crisis in water distribution. And as he said in that video, we tried to reallocate from low performing areas into higher performing areas. And what he means there is, who's going to pay me the most for the shit that I'm sitting on? Something that should not at all be a commodity to speculate on and to play games with. One of the earlier videos we did on Left Reckoning was about Bill Gates buying up farmland, and that's been happening ever since. Not trying to necessarily come at these folks, because there are people who are wealthy and they have asset managers who are telling them what to do. But this kind of like, the story came out and, sort of treated as a fun, cutesy story about Joe Burrow and other pro athletes take a stake in Iowa with farm purchases. Some of the biggest names of pro sports, a group including Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, Boston Celtics forward Blake Griffin, and Toronto Blue Jays pitcher Kevin Gausman, are spending $5 million or buying more buying U.S. farms with their first purchases coming to Iowa. The coalition of about 24 players bought the 104-acre North Iowa farm and plan to acquire more, according to Petrikoff Company, a specialized private New York investment firm facilitating the deal. The company declined to say how much the Iowa farm cost, right? And like, look, I'm not even trying to get worked up about Burrow and Griffin and Gausman, right? This is them separating. If we talk about pro athletes and their relationships with the NFL, this is them actually being people with capital, utilizing that capital as a capitalist. But even beyond that, like, these are people who are being told by financial investors what to do with their money. And I bring that up to say, this is what people with money are being told to do: buy up land, try to get in control of water, try to control natural resources. That's the direction that American capital is going. That's where they see the highest returns on their investment. And that's something that should worry you deeply. And all that being said, the questions of democracy, the questions on living in this country and globally, have never just been more apparent that there are two different realities. There's going to be people who own this stuff and are going to be fine. They're going to make a hell of a lot of money. And then there's going to be the rest of us who are sort of hoping that Matt Desario at Water Asset Management doesn't charge us too much money for water for a municipality or a community, right? That's the two-tiered world that we're in. If you thought that we were already in an unequal hellscape in the United States, it could get a lot worse, which means the imperative on us to get serious and to stop this squabbling and to stop this distance between the left and labor, between the left and communities, and to know that, like, yes, we have a big fight ahead of us. Yes, there's a lot of organizing needs to be done, but we actively need to be doing that instead of getting caught up in all these nonsensical controversies and all these things that suck up so much time and so much attention. Because we might not have another campaign to sort of pin our hopes to, and that means it's even more important for people to take seriously the work of building an alternative, because while we're not doing it, they're writing the future for us. And that's not a world I want to live in. Well, folks, I appreciate everybody hanging out tonight. I'm not done. We're going to be jumping over the post game. I think if y'all give me about 5 minutes or so, I should be up and ready. When we get over there, let me know if y'all want to do State of the Union stuff. I have it pulled up. We can watch some of it. I'm just going to tell you, I find that to just to be endlessly boring. But if enough of y'all want me to do it, we can do that. I have some stuff on the Civil War. I'll be taking calls and questions. You can leave us a voicemail right now at 1940-289-7234. I'll be taking Discord questions and all that over the post game, patreon.com/leftreckoning. We got a lot of cool stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks. Be sure to follow Madison Hilly and keep up with her work over there at the Campaign for a Green New Deal. Hope y'all join us in the post game. If not, I'll see all the rest of y'all next week.